You want to know why Trump is so totally frustrated with NATO? You want to know why he keeps saying these European powers are paper tigers? Well, Vladimir Putin just handed us the most vivid, most humiliating, most undeniable proof that Trump is absolutely right. And it didn't happen in some distant ocean, not in some far-flung corner of the globe. It happened right in the English Channel, in Britain's own backyard. You know, that stretch of water that Britain's been defending for 1,000 years, the waters where the Spanish Armada was destroyed, the waters where Napoleon was blockaded, the waters that Churchill defended to the last man. You're not going to believe what Russia just did in those very waters. And they gave their feckless coward of a prime minister, Kier Starmer, the finger the entire time. This is going to absolutely blow you away. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to enjoy yet another glorious day in Trump's golden age that you made possible back in November of 2024. So if you want a front row seat on how you continue to change the world in ways you never even imagined, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. So let me set the full picture here, because this is absolutely extraordinary. A few weeks ago, the British ultra-leftist Labour government, under the feckless non-leadership of Prime Minister Kier Starmer, put out one of those big, bold press releases, right? They're so good at that. These liberal elites love their press releases. They love their official statements. And they announced that Britain was going to interdict Russian shadow fleet tankers. Those are the secretly owned, sanctions-evading oil tankers that Russia uses to smuggle its crude oil past Western sanctions, funnel billions of dollars back to Moscow, fund its ongoing war machine in Ukraine. Britain was going to stop them. Valiantly, courageously, any Russian oil tanker sailing through the English Channel would be seized by British forces. They made the announcement. They got the headlines. They patted themselves on the back. You want to take a guess as to what Russian President Vladimir Putin did? He sent a sanctioned Russian tanker. It's named the Universal. It bears the delicious inscription, "Safety comes first," across its bow. I kid you not. And he sent it sailing directly through the English Channel. But this time, unlike past transits, he sent a Russian Navy frigate to escort it. The Admiral Grigorovich, a fully armed, fully operational Russian warship, sailed alongside the sanctioned tanker right through British territorial waters, as if to say, yeah, you and whose army? And the answer apparently was, no army, sir. No army, no navy, no response, none at all. When GB News broke the story, Downing Street gave no comment to it. Kier Starmer said literally nothing. The Ministry of Defense said nothing. Britain watched a Russian warship execute a textbook power projection operation in its own home waters and responded with a press release and a shrug. Now, here's where it gets both darkly funny, but genuinely frightening, especially if you're part of this increasingly defunct NATO alliance. We're going to talk about NATO's future in a moment. Here's the assessment from GB News.
But the reason why Russia feels so emboldened about this is that we only have one working Navy destroyer. So, Britannia rules the waves, sadly no longer. It took a month to get that warship to Cyprus after Hezbollah bombed our base on Cyprus. It's already had to go into maintenance because there's a problem with the water supply on the ship. And our defense secretary, when interviewed last week, had no idea how many ships we actually have. And this has got echoes of, remember when Trump said he was going to invade Greenland, and we were told we're sending British troops to Greenland. Our government sent one British military officer to Greenland. So he kind of just put boots on the ground, didn't he, really? Not boots. It was just absolutely shocking. But yeah.
It is shocking, shockingly absurd, grossly incompetent. A single functioning warship? And it's not even functional. In fact, do you know this? The humiliation knows no bounds. Britain is now having to borrow a German warship just to participate in a NATO training exercise in the Arctic. Let that, you heard that right. Let that hit you. The Royal Navy, the force that once enforced a continental blockade on Napoleon, that gave the world the Battle of Trafalgar, that kept the Atlantic supply lines open during the darkest days of World War II. That nation is now borrowing a German ship just to train in a military exercise. The nation that Kaiser Wilhelm couldn't challenge because he didn't have enough ships, they now have to actually borrow a functional warship. I mean, history does not lack for irony. And it actually gets worse. We're now learning that the real reason why Kier Starmer was so silent when Trump gave that ultimatum last weekend that Iran had either better agree to peace or he was going to obliterate an entire civilization. The UK didn't give a word to that, didn't say anything. It turns out, you know why? Starmer was on vacation. He was vacationing in Spain. He was on holiday, as they say across the pond. He wasn't even in the UK. And of course, that's after he refused to help American forces, saying this isn't a war, even though the UK is 5 times as dependent on oil coming from the Strait of Hormuz than we are. The guy is an absolute embarrassment. And now you got a Russian warship sailing through the English Channel, basically daring Britain to do anything about it, escorting a sanctions-busting tanker with an armed frigate through another nation's territorial waters is about as provocative as you can get, just shy of actually pulling the trigger. And Kier Starmer hid under his desk. He did nothing. They threatened Russia. Russia gave him the finger and said, what are you going to do about it? And Starmer dove under his desk. It's so sad. Now you know why President Trump is so upset with NATO. It's simply not the alliance that it once was. It's become an alliance of freeloaders and parasites who live off of us. They live off of literally us, the American taxpayer, and they're not even the least bit grateful for it. So all of this obviously begs the question, what is the future, if any, for NATO? More and more analysts are asking that question. They are giving their assessment, and that is exactly what we're about to find out. We are indeed witnessing a historic turning point as President Trump leads a righteous crusade to finally liberate the world from the terrorist state of Iran. A much more sinister war is being waged right here on our own soil. While our commander-in-chief moves with decisive strength to demolish the Iranian war machine, obliterating their military hubs like Karg Island to protect global freedom, he's being systematically undermined by the enemies within. These anti-Trump shadow state radicals are desperate. They see the president winning. So they're manufacturing a domestic crisis to try and break the spirit of the American patriot. They want the dollar in flames and your life savings frozen in the crossfire of their manufactured economic blackout. Their goal is to force you into a state of financial submission where the shadow treasury controls every penny you own. The question is, will you wait until the bank holidays start, or will you launch your family finance defense today? You must act now to move your savings into a territory these radicals cannot touch, and that is cryptocurrency. And you can build your financial fortress right now by using Block Trust IRA. I'm a proud client of Block Trust, and I've seen their amazing Animus AI platform work firsthand. Their 24/7 Animus AI has consistently outperformed Bitcoin by over 250% since 2020 by navigating the exact volatility these saboteurs are trying to create. While the world panics, Block Trust IRA's $200 million institutional-grade insurance shield defends your wealth, ensuring your life's work remains out of reach from the shadow state. Now, to help you launch your defense, Block Trust IRA is authorizing a $2,500 family finance defense bonus to be added to your new crypto IRA the moment you sign up, to use right away. Head on over to turleytalkscrypto.com right now and schedule a confidential discussion with their crypto AI experts. Share this link with every patriot you know. It's time for a collective family finance defense. Act now to defend your family and your future. That's turleytalkscrypto.com to safeguard your family's prosperity today. What happened in the English Channel was not merely an embarrassment for Britain. It was a stress test of the entire post-war security architecture. And obviously that architecture failed. Now, to understand why, you have to grasp what NATO actually is at its structural core. It's not a military alliance of equals. It never was. It was never meant to be. It's an American security guarantee extended to the whole of Europe, wrapped in the diplomatic fiction of collective defense. So for 77 years, the United States provided the nuclear umbrella, the command architecture, the intelligence networks, the logistics backbone, and the bulk of deployable combat power. Europe provided the geography, the political legitimacy, and increasingly, the nauseating moral lectures. The English Channel incident simply made visible what analysts have privately acknowledged for decades. The European emperor has no clothes. The clothes were always American, through and through. The deeper tragedy is structural. Europe is not weak because it lacks wealth. The EU's GDP actually rivals America's. It's weak because it made deliberate choices over 2 generations to convert defense spending into social welfare, to hollow out military recruitment, to surrender energy independence, and to embed political constraints, domestic, legal, and demographic, that made hard military decisions nearly impossible for elected governments to take. Britain cannot interdict a Russian tanker, not merely because it lacks the ships, though it does. It can't do so because the political class that would order such an action has spent 30 years dismantling the institutional culture and public consensus that would make such decisive action legitimate. So what happens now? Given how dysfunctional NATO has become with these patently weakling nations, what are our options? Well, right now, there are 3 credible futures for NATO, and none of them looks like the alliance in 1999. The first is what's called dormant NATO. Dormant NATO is a concept floated by Trump advisor Sumantra Mitra. And the alliance, in this case, is placed basically on ice. Okay, it's maintained as a legal framework and a nuclear backstop, but it's stripped of active U.S. conventional commitment. America keeps the Supreme Allied Commander Europe, the second highest military position within NATO. We keep the nuclear codes. We keep Allied air and land command. But America transfers all operational warfighting commands to Europeans, as is already beginning with the handover of Joint Force Commands in Norfolk and Naples to the UK and Italy. Europeans handle their own conventional defense. America shows up for existential crises only. That's the dormant NATO model. The second is a 2-tier NATO. It's a framework already being discussed in Washington policy circles in which nations meeting a higher defense spending threshold, the 5% of GDP is agreed to at NATO's June summit, they receive full Article 5 guarantees. So you pony up the 5%, you get Article 5 guarantees. All the while, free riders like Spain receive a downgraded commitment. So this preserves the alliance's formal structure while creating hard incentives that decades of diplomatic pressure never could. And then third, and this is frankly the most radical, it gets completely restructured around what's called the coalition of the willing model. And this is where America just abandons the NATO framework entirely in favor of bilateral security agreements with the allies that actually showed up in the Iran war: Poland, Greece, Czech Republic, Portugal, nations that either met their commitments or at least stayed silent rather than publicly undermining United States operations. The alliance's eastern flank, which takes Russia very seriously because it's got to, would form the backbone of a leaner, more credible security arrangement. The Russian warship in this channel, in the English Channel, really is the punctuation mark on a sentence Europe has been writing for 30 years. The question is no longer whether NATO will be restructured. It will be, one way or another. The question is whether Europe restructures it deliberately with American partnership or has restructuring forced upon it by the logic of events it can no longer control. Britain's failure to interdict a single sanctioned tanker after threatening it would do so suggests the answer, uncomfortably, may indeed be the latter. After all, history does not wait for press releases. One of the easiest ways to support this channel is through the Turley Talks store. Great merch, great values. Click the link below and shop today.